comments.
What a break.
Is that Dennis? Is that Dennis watching? Okay, yeah. His comments. Mike, how's it going?
If I fall asleep over here, nudge me or something. Yeah. We had we had a 21-hour day yesterday, and I had a 7.5-hour ride.
Oh my God.
Today. So I fall asleep. Mr. Chair?
Yeah, that's all right.
Big questions whether we can get this done before we lose powers. You heard the story.
You don't know. Yeah.
Very, very human. Right back there, host applicant right there.
Oh, he's ready.
Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Time is 6:30, and I will call to order the meeting of the Duck Planning Board. First of all, we will open the meeting with public comments. And I'll make a few remarks first. If any member of the public wishing to speak must go to the podium to speak, so please don't speak from your chairs. And please state your full name and your address before speaking. Number two, during public comments, we would ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Three, we would ask that no member of the public approach staff or other speakers while they are speaking at the podium. Lastly, comments will be permitted during the course of the meeting, but we would ask that you, when you're making these comments, do not repeat the same comments that you've made previously. So, with that, are there any public comments? Please come up one at a time and give your name and address.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to come here and speak tonight. I'm William Gray. My wife and I have a house at 107 Speckled Trout. We've been members of the community now for about 15 years. My background, I am in commercial and residential real estate development. I have been for about 30 years working in cities and states throughout the U.S. And I just want to offer a few comments, broad comments, perhaps to the planning board as well as the town, just some perspective that I've seen for being involved for the last 2 years, fortunately or unfortunately, in some matters involving the Route 12 shoreline improvement project, as well as the application that is before the planning board tonight. One recommendation I would have is I would encourage the planning board and the town council to embark upon a complete comprehensive review of your zoning ordinance. What I've seen over the last couple of years, see, there's just a lot of items in there that are vague, that are left to interpretation, and that's what is leading to a lot of debate with the application here tonight, in fact. One of those, for example, is reference to the Promenade as a redevelopment and certain standards apply, but you don't find the word redevelopment anywhere in the town ordinance. So I think take it, we're going to use that word and reference it and saying that any application for a property that's a redevelopment gets grandfathered, then let's put it in the ordinance so we won't be having these types of debates and disputes going forward. Another item that came up, well, very lively debate at the town council meeting, referenced dead ends on a drive aisle and number of parking spaces and what constitutes a dead end. Well, it's not defined in the ordinance, so it's not clear, so it's left to interpretation of someone at the town staff. And the same thing with a turnaround. Exactly what is a turnaround? So I think you can find a lot of incidences or a lot of examples of this. So I would encourage the town to take a look at that. Second is enforcement. I mean, the planning board, town engineer, and staff spend a lot of time looking at applications as well as the town council. What I've seen in applications that I've looked at is things get approved here, but what actually happens and gets built and implemented is something totally different. So example, I know we were picking on the NC Coast application, but that was a special use permit for a restaurant at the NC Coast property, and on that application, on the site plan, was a ramp that connected the town boardwalk with the deck on the back of the restaurant. I obtained the copy of the as-built survey, and that ramp doesn't exist today, but it was a part of what was approved in the application. I can't find anybody to give me an example of why that ramp isn't there. Instead, what you'll see, if you went there today, is a tent with 24 tables under it, or 12 tables that can seat 24 or 40 people. The entire site plan for that restaurant was for 38 seats. Right? There's 48 seats outside today. There was a kayak storage area shown on the site plan.
Mr. Gray.
But that's not there today, and instead you see tables. So I'm pretty sure that the table count of that restaurant exceeds what was approved, but I don't think there's any provisions or procedures in place for the town to follow up. And the same thing with parking on that.
Mr. Gray, could you wrap it up? It's now been
I've
over
just got
3
one
minutes.
more comment. So
And
as,
you will have the opportunity to comment on the specific proposal later.
I will. So I've got one more on the NC Coast about the follow-up. So in the parking tabulations for NC Coast, it stated 6 employees. So there's 1 parking space for every 3 employees. I was there the other night. There were 10 employees in the restaurant that were visible to me. So was that a violation of the special use permit that was granted for them based upon the fact that they were representing the application? There'd be 6 employees. All of this has impacts on parking.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask that you wrap it up.
That's good. Thank you.
Again, please limit, these are public comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. You'll have the opportunity to talk about the proposal itself later.
Chairman Cofen, do you want me to put a timer on it so that it beeps, or do you want me to just let you know when the 3 minutes is up?
What was the first option?
I can set a timer that will alarm goes off
that
at
would
3
be-
minutes.
Yes, do that.
Okay.
Please, Sandy. Any other public comments?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Dick Allebach. My wife Gail and I own the property at 100 Dune Road. We've owned that property since
I'm sorry. Would you say your last name again?
Allebach, A-L-L-E-B-A-C-H.
Thank you.
We've owned the property since 1988, so we've been here before Duck was incorporated. What I'd like to speak to you a little bit about tonight is the fact that I'm concerned, as Bill Gray has already mentioned to you, that we have things that have taken place in the town that were not written in the ordinances and zoning. Now, I realize that in some cases there are reasons behind why we should make exceptions, but I think the number of exceptions that have been made and are being made is just too much. If you need to go over the zoning and the ordinances and revise them, then please do that. Don't just make exceptions for people because of the situation at that particular time. Our property is immediately adjacent to Route 12 on the corner, catty corner to Resort Realty. My wife and I have discussed this, and we are amenable to having part of the right-of-way taken in front of our property to widen Route 12. I talked to Mr. Otts from North Carolina Department of Transportation, and he informed me that the town has this responsibility, if you will, or has the pleasure, if you want to call it that, or the job to do something about Route 12 in that area. It's not the state is making a plan for this. So I would encourage you to, at the very least, talk to the town about widening the road at least out to and past where it is now, including the property that we're discussing here that belongs to Resort Realty. 3 lanes in that area would make it a lot easier in some respects for the traffic situation. I understand that it is possible to do that. In some situations, it might involve taking some of the property that's already in there as far as Resort Realty is concerned, but I understand that that can be done as part of the redevelopment process. So if that's necessary, then I think you need to do that. But the road in that area is not the safest area. And if it can be done now, now's the time to do it. Widen the road to 3 lanes in that area, so at the very least, you can have some remediation of the traffic situation. As a fallback, the final thing I would say to you would be, if at the very minimum, you should have the 3 lanes extend out to the first parking lot that the Resort Realty has asked for in their redevelopment. That's not a good choice as far as I'm concerned, but it's better than the way it is now. So I would encourage you to look at this situation now. One other thing I would like to say to you, and I hope this is not the case, I've heard some rumors about the fact that some of the things that were put in the plan originally and have now been changed to do something about the area where we're immediately adjacent to that.
Mr. Olibat, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, can I just finish this one
You can
thought?
wrap it up, but you'll have the opportunity to speak about the specific proposal
Okay,
later.
fine, thank you.
I think we're going to have a timer up on the
else?
screen for the next person.
Anyone else from the audience like to speak at this time? Public comments.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dennis Wojcik, and I live at 103 Dune Road. And I'm going to talk about the Promenade site plan that is going to be considered by your board tonight. I looked at the submittal, the information that I could find, and I went through the summary of the development that was submitted by the developer. And there are many issues that I think need to be clarified, or some that I think are just not true. It is stated that the existing office building will be demolished. Please note that with the exception on the site, everything will be demolished. That includes the parking lots. It is stated that new structures will be constructed. It should be noted that all aspects of the development will be new. It is stated that there is parking to the side. It should be noted that 70% of the parking is in front of the building. It is stated that it is proposed to connect to existing boardwalk and sidewalks. There is no proposed construction shown on the plan. It is stated that the development is pedestrian and bicycle friendly. I do not believe this is not the case, since there are no connections proposed for construction to existing pedestrian and cycling, and that there are multiple ingress-egress locations that are proposed that will cause safety hazards for pedestrians and cyclists. It is stated that an application for a driveway permit has been submitted to NCDOT and it's anticipated that it will be approved as shown. The plan that is submitted violates the NCDOT policy for location of driveways. The NCDOT would have to violate their own policy to issue a permit for that driveway. It is stated that the development plan is proposed to keep the existing parking layout and provide improvements to meet the current town standards. This is a false statement. The entire parking lot is revised, and at the northern parking area, it is dramatically different. Also, the parking proposed does not conform to sections 156-112D4 and 156-112B2. It is stated that there are handicap accessible spaces with dedicated routes to the accessible ramp. There is not a dedicated route from the van accessible parking space. To reach the accessible ramp, you must cross the loading zone. It is stated that in regard to the loading zone, the area will provide an open area for safer pedestrian and ADA access. This is certainly not true when the loading zone is being utilized. It is stated 2 more times about connections to boardwalks and sidewalks, which I certainly do not see on the plan. And it is stated that installation of a wastewater system will provide very good effluent. The pretreatment system.
3 minutes are up. Again, you'll have the opportunity to speak specifically to this proposal during the presentation of the proposal. Any other members of the public wish to offer public comments? Hearing, yes. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Beard. I'm at 114. I'm Mary Ann Beard. I'm at 114 Dune Road since 1986, so I've been there 36 years. I've been there since before most all this commercial building on the Soundfront and Duck has been built, and a lot of the residential. One of the things that's most important to me is the view, the natural view of the Sound. We have one of the last remaining natural views of the Sound at the end of Dune Road. So I want to be sure of the footprint that's there. What's also been disconcerting to me is that the building that's there now for Resort Realty will be completely demolished. Also, they're not using the current septic system and so forth. So it seems to be a brand new build to me, but then I hear you guys say, well, it's redevelopment, it's not new build. So we can disregard certain codes because it's not new building codes. And I just think that's wrong. I think that you definitely need to be looking at this as a new build, and if there's, there seems to be maybe a variance that's needed for the difference between adding a new deck onto my house or completely redoing what's there at that footprint. The traffic in that area is atrocious. Today was a pretty good day, but usually at 1:30 or 2:30 in the afternoon, or even at dinner time, it takes forever to get out on the street there. Most of the times I have to turn right, go north up to where I can do a U-turn and come back down to go south, because it's impossible to turn south there. So I think you really need to take a look at a turn lane there, and also the fact that you're saying this is redevelopment and not new development in this site, and you're overlooking meeting certain codes, maybe codes by the town of Duck and codes that are set by the state of North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Hearing none and seeing none, I'll close the public comment section of the meeting. The third item on the agenda tonight is new business. SUP-22-002 Application by Bissell Professional Group on behalf of property owner, the Promenade at Duck LLC, for a special use permit to redevelop the existing property in the Village Commercial VC District at 1248 Duck Road, PIN 9859-117-61927, as a group development to include a 49-seat restaurant with two two-story buildings. Building A will include 1,082 square feet of first-floor retail space and a two-bedroom accessory dwelling unit on the second floor. Building B will include a 998 square foot first-floor retail space and a two-bedroom accessory dwelling unit on the second floor. Application of the village commercial development option is requested to reduce the required setback requirement.
Rear setback.
To the rear setback requirement. From the staff, Donna, would you like to begin the discussion?
Good evening. Good evening. Let me make sure I speak into the mic. Sandy reminded me of that tonight. As Mr. Cofield said, Chairman Cofield said, this is a special use permit that has been submitted for 1248 Duck Road. It is referred to as the Promenade. It's the former Resort Realty Real Estate Office, and it is zone village commercial. It's also being reviewed under the section of the zoning ordinance that applies to group developments, since there is more than one principal use structure proposed for the site. There is a restaurant proposed as part of the commercial development, and so it is subject to section 156.129 eating establishments. The commercial development design standards also apply. The village commercial development option is also being, as part of this request tonight, as they are seeking a request and a reduction in the setbacks, which are offered under that section of the zoning ordinance. This is a special use permit because it is a restaurant that is automatically triggers special use permit, and then again, because it is a group development. There is an existing structure on the property that will be demolished, and there are 3 proposed commercial structures that are going back on the site. You previously reviewed a site plan for this, and it went to the Ducktown Council, and it was not approved by the Ducktown Council, and the developer has made modifications to that site plan.
Donna, if you could just speak up just a little bit more.
Okay, sorry about that. This was reviewed by the Ducktown Council in May, and it was denied by the board. The comments from the town council members at that time focused primarily on parking. At that time, the property owner was seeking a reduction in the parking standards, and that is no longer a feature of the site plan that is in front of you tonight. And that is an important distinction from the last plan that you had in front of you. The previous site plan featured structures that were 3 stories. They have been modified to be 2 stories. The apartments that were proposed in 2 of the structures have been revised. Instead of being 3-bedroom apartments, they will now be 2-bedroom apartments. And as a result of that change in the number of bedrooms, there is a reduction in the parking that's associated with that. The retail space has also been modified so that it's been decreased. The number of restaurant seats has not changed. They are allowed a seasonal increase in the restaurant seats, and that is consistent with that section of the zoning ordinance and the number that is allowed. The site plan has been submitted to the Department of Transportation, and they will be responsible for approving a driveway permit before there is a construction permit that's associated with this. So you have the special use permit in front of you tonight, which is the site plan approval. If it gets a recommendation for approval tonight, it will go back in front of the town council. They will have deliberations on it again, and if they approve it, then there will be alternate reviews or subsequent reviews for the lighting and the construction plans. And so there's more detailed work that occurs after the site plan on the specifics of the building, if you will. The project has been reviewed by the town engineer, the fire department, the police department, the water department, the environmental health department, and it has also been approved by CAMA. The lot coverage is consistent with the standards that are allowed in the VC zoning district. The VC zoning district allows 60% lot coverage. They are proposing a lot coverage of 47.3%. They are still seeking a rear yard setback reduction, which is allowed under the development option for village commercial. The VC district establishes a 20-foot rear yard setback. They are seeking a reduction of 10 feet in the rear yard setback, which is consistent with the reduction of up to 50% that's allowed in the village commercial development option. They have changed the parking. Previously, they were seeking a reduction in the parking. And as you'll note in the parking calculation that's included on your site plan, the required number of parking spaces is 30 parking spaces, and they are showing 30 parking spaces on the site plan. In order to be granted approval for the special use permit under the development option, there are 5 criterion that has to be met. I have outlined those in my staff comments. With the staff response, the first is the development proposal is consistent with the adopted vision and comprehensive plan. And I have included a detailed analysis as attachment J of the land use plan and the specific policies and the vision statement as it is included in the land use plan, and it is my opinion that is consistent with the vision statement and with the land use plan policies. The development proposal is consistent with the desired scale, character, and function of Duck Village. The scale of the proposed buildings are consistent with the gross floor area limitations. They do not exceed the gross floor area limitations of the village commercial. The proposed uses are consistent with the other uses that are in the village commercial district and is consistent with the other existing commercial uses found in Duck Village. The development plan reflects the similar characteristics of the other commercial developments. There's an adjoining commercial development there, and the plan that you have in front of you, you have building renderings in there, and the buildings have been designed to reflect the architectural standards that are found in the zoning ordinance. So it is my opinion that it meets criteria number 2. The property and development proposal contain many characteristics established in 156.065 Parent E guidelines. Staff response, the proposed 3 structures will feature building designs, lighting improvements, and landscaping that will be consistent with the VC zoning regulations for commercial development. The architectural plans have been designed to reflect the town's commercial building guidelines. The structures will meet the building height. The retail shops and eating establishments will contribute to the vibrancy and ambiance of Duck Village, which is mentioned in the vision statement and in the land use plan. Number 4, the requested modifications are the least necessary to accommodate the proposed development and meet the intent of the village commercial development option. Staff response, the requested reductions in the rear yard setback meets the parameters established in 156.065. And number 5, the requested modifications will not negatively impact adjacent properties or the surrounding area. And it is staff response that the proposal will not introduce any negative impacts on the surrounding properties and provide for future connectivity along the Soundfront Boardwalk. We've heard a lot of comments about traffic impacts and all, and it is, the traffic is the traffic. Is there some room for improvement there? Possibly, yes. But I'm not sure if that's within the purview of the town to require those improvements, or if there's area there to do that. I know that there is a build grant that is pending for the town, and that they have reviewed that, and hopefully some of that will be make the road there better when it's done. And I don't know the details of that. Sandy is more involved with that. But I think the important thing about the traffic is that this has been reviewed by the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and they will have to issue a driveway permit before the final construction permits are issued for that. So the approval authority, or a lot of the approval authority, weighs with the with the Department of Transportation. And they have provided comments that are in your packet, or that we have been provided previously. As I said, the developer has revised the project based on some of the concerns that were expressed by the planning board and the town council. They have reduced the retail size of the proposed space. They have decreased the residential uses from 3 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms, and they have reduced the stories of the buildings from 3 to 2. There is no parking reduction requested. As I stated previously, it's my opinion that it's consistent with the land use plan. You have 13 draft conditions that staff has identified for you. I'm not going to go through and read all of those. And I'm going to stop right there if you have any questions. If not, I will go back to my seat and let you guys proceed forward.
Donna, I have a couple of questions. First, I'd like to note, in your staff report, you noted that the town council voted no or rejected the proposal when it was before it at a previous time. I'd just like to note that the planning board also recommended no.
Yes, sir.
On page 3, the paragraph that begins, "The site plan includes," you indicate that the use of pervious pavement will be used for the parking areas. This is not consistent with the site plan, so I would suggest that that should be changed to note will be used for the parking spaces, not the parking areas that would include the driveway.
Yes, sir. Duly noted. Thank you for that.
And lastly, not lastly, but also in your report, the question comes from your report. I think I know the answer. Has the staff met with the Department of Transportation to discuss this proposal specifically?
I have not had any direct conversations with David Ott. I know that Sandy has had conversations with them, whether they've been person to person or via email and telephone. I think it's been email and telephone, because I've been privy to some of the email conversations that she's forwarded to me, but I don't think there's been a person-to-person. Sandy
There
can
has
answer
not
that.
been a person-to-person meeting with NCDOT. They have reviewed this preliminarily. They are reluctant to issue a permit in advance of final plans because they state that often has happened, and they're trying to get away from plans that end up being voided because that's not what ends up happening. So their engineers and their traffic engineers have looked at this. They've looked at the use. We've sent them everything. I'm pretty sure Mr. Klebitz has done his job as well and submitted an application. But again, NCDOT is waiting for the final plans. And if there are revisions that are needed tonight or at council and or in the stormwater review, that's what NCDOT wants to see.
At our previous meeting, there was extensive discussion about the lack of or the need for a turning lane in front of the Resort Realty property. Has this issue been raised with the Department of Transportation?
We have not directly inquired with NCDOT. We have inquired with our engineers, and our engineers have preliminarily told us that it's possible that we can extend the turning lane. That would be a town decision and a council decision to move forward on that, and a cost associated with it. We have just recently been given a preliminary cost estimate just for the redesign to make that happen. In addition to that, I believe in our previous correspondence, they also reached out to one of their NCDOT. So VHB has a lot of different departments, and their DOT person, let me see if I can find that email. We had talked about also shifting the crosswalk south to take advantage of the turn lane taper as a refuge space. They didn't recommend that because the currently proposed crosswalk location has better spacing distance from the next crosswalk to the south, which is Cook Road or Cook Drive. The currently proposed location is closer to the Dune Road intersection, which is which is a more expected location and helps minimize driver and pedestrian confusion. There's a lot of things that go into making decisions on where you're going to make turn lanes, where you're going to have crosswalks, and it's not something that you go into and just say, let's do this. Again, we talked to our engineers before the planning board meeting in April about this because Mr. Wojak brought it up. And preliminarily, they said, it's possible. Now they've said, it's possible, but it's going to cost you some money. And that's not something that applicants are going to be responsible for because this is going to be in the right-of-way. So is it possible? Yes. Is it something that council wants to direct town staff to pursue further? Understanding that we have to agree on a contract with the engineer, they have to redesign the plans, they have to get that into the permitting process as well. So there's a lot of different variables that all play a part in whether or not that is possible. The first being whether council wants to have that happen.
So am I understanding you correctly that even though Duck Road or Route 12, NC 12, is a state highway, a state road, that the town has the ability to make a turning lane there?
We would have to get approval from the NCDOT, of course, but that's all in the works. Like, we are in the process of elevating Duck Road from Resort Realty to Sunset Grill. So there's already a permit in the works with NCDOT, with the Division of Coastal Management, and also as we await the award from FEMA for the BRIC grant.
I was going to ask about the BRIC grant. Is FEMA aware that the staff is recommending this project, which is so close to the beginning of the BRIC project?
I don't know that that has any bearing on that project.
So is your answer yes or no?
My answer would be no, probably not.
There were a number of comments at our last meeting about safety. And I assume that this is just an error, but the comment from the various departments, the police department, upon review, looks good from a fire perspective still. I assume that means, he doesn't mean, our police chief does not mean from a fire perspective.
I'm sure that was just a cut and paste issue, but both Chief Ackerman and Deputy Chief Bachelet agree that this was a reduction in what was previously presented, so they did not have any further comments.
Thanks, Sandy. Any other planning board members have questions or comments to the staff?
I have one question. Sandy, going back to where you were talking about the widening of the road there, would there have to be land acquired, or is it wide enough to have that take place now?
Verbatim from VHB, who is our engineer, we've taken a look at the existing right-of-way width along the width required for the proposed improvements, and it appears there is room to shift the sidewalks and other improvements to extend the left turn lane north, as we discussed, to allow access to the proposed southern entrance to the redeveloped Realty site. So they're not taking it all the way to Dune Road, but to make a full turn lane, like right now, the turn lane is not quite wide enough for a vehicle to sit in there without a vehicle to the right pushing into the bike lane. Temporary construction easements, actually he said it will likely be a tight fit, likely within inches, but it appears to be workable. Temporary construction easements would need to be adjusted, expanded, and at this stage, we cannot rule out potentially that additional permanent easements would be required. But that does not appear to be the case on initial review. Most of the shift and additional width would need to occur on the east side of the road, where there is more right-of-way width outside of the currently proposed sidewalk alignment. We shift east, we're going to get into trees, and we're going to get into more hills.
Okay, thanks.
Sandy, say that again.
If we have to shift east to get additional space to expand that turn lane, we will likely be getting into trees, more trees, and hills. Because on the east side of the Duck Road, at that area, it slopes up. There are several properties that have a pretty high bluff. Mr. Fagerstein is one of them.
But at least preliminarily, the discussion to date has only been to extend the turning lane to the first driveway and not the second driveway going
Yeah, I
north.
don't know that there's necessarily room for the second. And that was not presented as a cause of concern when we met with Mr. Wojak back in April. It was the southern turn lane. But we did bring up, potentially relocating the crosswalk, and they did not think that that was a good idea.
Any other questions or comments to the staff at this time? Board members?
Yes. Oh, Joe, go ahead. You keep saying Joe.
Whichever one of you guys is going to speak, if you can just make sure you speak, just, if you can speak into the mic, Joe.
What was that?
Speak into the mic, please.
Hello. How are you? Fine. All right. The applicant has written a summary on the various land use plan and the town of Duck vision to illustrate how the project conforms. Correct? You with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And one of them, well, more than one, the consistency with the town of Duck vision has a lot of mentioning about the boardwalk. Like number 2 says the boardwalk and sidewalk connections proposed in this redevelopment plan are consistent with this principle. I don't know where we even mention the boardwalk in our vision plan that says it's.
My recollection of the vision statement is that it talks about pedestrian access, and so I didn't write that project summary, so I would have to defer to him and what he intended by the use of those words.
Well, that's okay, but it remotely it keeps saying that the uses and the boardwalk proposed are consistent with this principle, and I don't know where it's consistent with this principle because we made the principle. And why is the boardwalk even included here? Is the applicant going to put the boardwalk in?
There's conditions included in there that there's easements for future expansions of the boardwalk. So I'm assuming that because the easements are there for the future expansion, that is not the intent for him to put the boardwalk in, and I don't think the easement is there to connect to the other sections. I don't think that the town is planned to do the construction at this point, hence the easement, so that when they get to that point, again, Sandy may be able to answer that, and for the developer and what his intent, and you'll have to ask them.
Well, I'm just going to step back one second and talk about the vision. And one of the 6 criteria is enhanced movability. Duck is a pedestrian-first community that is safe and easy to navigate by walking and cycling. Our multi-use trails, sidewalks, soundside boardwalk, and beach provide a variety of ways to explore and discover Duck. Collaboration with various organizations enable us to optimize our traffic flow in a unique seasonal environment. So the boardwalk is important in this regard, and the easement that we've conditioned on this in the proposed conditional use permit is for a future connection between where we terminate at the waterfront shops to Resort Realty, and then again from the north side of Resort Realty connecting back to the sidewalk that's going to be constructed when we raise the road. So it's all intertwined in an effort to make the community, the village, much more walkable and connected. Like from Aqua all the way to Sunset Grill, you should be able to walk, whether it's on the sidewalk along NC-12 or whether you're using the boardwalk as a means to get off the roadway.
All right.
Just to add on to what Sandy says, there under the second sentence, under the Duck in our village, it says, surrounded by residential neighborhoods, Duck Village is the heart of Duck, our collection of small shops, restaurants, offices, parks, and boardwalks combined to shape the Duck experience. Perhaps that's where Mr. Klebitz pulled the use of the word boardwalks from. I'm sure he'll address that in his comments, though.
So the boardwalk is a future thing.
Absolutely. I mean, the town has to have money to add boardwalk sections, and that's usually coordinated with grant money. And right now, we're working on a grant for the road raising. We also have some grant opportunities that we're working on for the living shoreline at the town park. So there's only so much we can do in a certain amount of time.
So does that mean it's really in our vision?
Absolutely. I mean, this was part of the plan when we started this conversation, when Joe started with the applicants a year and a half ago, longer maybe. This was definitely, with the idea that we were going to raise the road and we were going to put a sidewalk on the west side of Duck Road. It makes perfect sense to have that connectivity along the sound side.
Okay for now.
Thank you.
Mark, I just wanted to clarify, or have Donna clarify, number 8, condition number 8 in the proposed conditions, the applicant must secure approval from the NC Department of Transportation before issuance of the duct construction permit, before duct construction permits can be secured. You mentioned that in your comments, but several of the public comments mentioned DOT. So I just wanted to reiterate, or have you reiterate to make it clear that regardless of our approval tonight, DOT will do a full review of the final plan and make their decision based on that.
Yes, sir. Sometimes the state approvals, DOT, state stormwater, whatever the state agencies are, it's a chicken and egg type thing. They're always hesitant to approve a site plan before the local government approves it. And oftentimes the project engineers are hesitant to have the state approve something before the local approval is because there's changes that occur at the state level. So yes, DOT has to review it, and they're waiting for the approval from the local government to be rendered before they spend the time and energy to issue the permit, is from what I understand from Mr. Otts, that they get hundreds and thousands of applicants that never get local approval, that they're just, so they're trying to make their process more efficient, if you will.
Thank you.
Donna?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to discuss or clarify the staff comment number 4 about reduction in the,
What page are you on?
Page 5?
no, page 5. Reduction in the rear yard setback meets the parameters established in 156.065. And that's dealing with, you can have a reduction up to 50%.
Yes, sir.
So the 20 feet setback in the rear can go to 10 feet.
Yes, sir.
And they're right, the proposal for one of the buildings is 10 feet 2 inches, and the other one 10 feet 3 inches. I'm not sure I'm asking for clarification. The edge of the roof, the roof eaves, roughly on my calculations, come out about 2 feet 8 inches. And if you look into, I looked under 156.051, which allows roof eaves and overhang to project out 12 inches. So if you're able to give the 12-inch reduction on this plan, you're still at a foot and a half further into the
rear yard setback.
from the property line. So therefore, instead of needing a 10-foot reduction, they need an 11 and a half foot reduction. So there's numerous comments and all the write-ups about this proposal complies with the 50% reduction. And based on what I'm looking at with this, taking into account the edge of the roof, the proposal exceeds the 10-foot reduction. They're asking for about 11 and a half feet reduction.
And if that is the case, that the building is designed that way, then they would need to redesign that to meet the 10 feet, and I will let Mr. Klebitz address that. I will point out, though, that the existing building that's there is only, part of it is only 5 feet from the rear property line, so there's already a setback issue there, if you will. I quite honestly did not pick up on that roof eave overhang there, and I apologize for that. I was looking at another portion of the site
whole
plan.
proposal just goes back and back about their applying to that. And I don't know if I'm interpreting it right, but the way I'm reading,
Yes,
they
and
can
we'll let,
only have the eave extend a foot into the, above the lot line, you know, if it's right on the lot line. They give you a foot, but no more than a foot.
I'm going to let Mr. Klebitz address that, because in the architect, Because if there's an inconsistency in that, then you are correct, then there's an inconsistency in it, and they need to address that. Okay? Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you for pointing that out.
I think when the applicants speak, they can certainly speak to that and see if that's something that can be addressed easily.
Sandy, I can't hear that. I'm sorry.
When the applicants have the opportunity to present, they'll speak to that, because I do believe that's something that can easily be rectified.
Any other comments or questions regarding the staff report? Staff report only. Hearing none, we can come back and address it later when we have the discussion among ourselves, but the proponents, would you like to make your presentation? And each person who comes up, please, at the beginning of your comments, please give your name and address. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is David Klebitz. I'm a civil engineer with Bissell Professional Group, located at 3512 North Croatan Highway, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. First, I'd like to thank staff and Donna for the review and presentation of this latest plan before you tonight. We listened to the concerns expressed by Town Council, the Planning Board, and the public, and have made the following changes to the plan before you tonight. The two three-story buildings previously proposed have been reduced to 2 stories. That is a 33% reduction in the number of stories of those 2 buildings. We have reduced the total number of bedrooms from 6 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms. That is a 33% reduction in the number of bedrooms. We have reduced the residential floor area from 3,360 square feet to 2,336 square feet. That is a 30% reduction in the in the residential floor area. We have reduced the retail space from 2,450 square feet to 2,080 square feet. That is a 15% reduction in the amount of retail space that was previously proposed. The residential and retail reductions that I just described bring the required parking requirement down to 30 parking spaces. The plan proposes 30 parking spaces. The previous parking exception that was, met with great concern the last go around is no longer needed and is no longer being requested. A dedicated vehicular turnaround space has been added to the northern parking area. This further alleviates the possibility of vehicles having to back out onto NC-12 from that northern parking area. The amount of pervious pavement on the site or on the proposed site plan has increased from 1,887 square feet to 4,356 square feet. This is a 130% increase over the previous plan and more than 2 times the minimum requirement of the ordinance. A note has been added giving the public boardwalk extension from the waterfront shops the option to connect near the south end of the to the southwest corner of the proposed restaurant. This offers a possible alternative to having to come in over the sound as previously proposed. That's still on the plan, but we've added an additional option for the future boardwalk connection. That was a recommendation from the town. The recycle bin previously proposed in the northern parking area has been relocated adjacent to the refuse dumpster in the southern parking area. A set of roll-out trash bins have been added adjacent to the northern building for use by the residential occupants. Those are the things that have changed from the previous plan. The rear setback reduction is still being requested as allowed by the village commercial development option and is within the 50% limit prescribed. It is important to note that during the previous plan review, 3 members of town council specifically stated that they had no issue with the requested setback reduction. Additionally, no members of council, or as I recall, any members of the planning board expressed concern with the requested setback reduction. This is just to reiterate that we're still asking for the setback reduction. The following outlines primary concerns expressed by council, the planning board, and the public, and how they have been addressed. The greatest concern was the requested parking reduction during the last review. We've addressed that parking reduction by making changes to the development plan as a whole, so now the parking required is 30 spaces, and we are providing 30 spaces. We are no longer asking for a parking reduction. A second concern was vehicles having to back out onto Duck Road from the northern parking area. In an effort to address this concern, the plan has been revised to add a dedicated vehicular turnaround in that northern parking area. A third concern was that the development plan was too much or too dense for the site or overdone. In an effort to address this concern, the scale and use of the residential and retail buildings have been reduced by between 15 and 33%, as I explained earlier on in the presentation. It is also important to reiterate that the proposed lot coverage is 47.3%. This is considerably less than the 56% that currently exists on that site, and that much more less than the 60% that is allowed in the town's ordinance. The following is a quick outline of the consistencies in the latest plan. This plan is consistent with the town's ordinance with one exception, the rear setback. The requested setback reduction is allowable under the village commercial development option and is within the 50% limit prescribed. The reduction was supported by council and no opposition was expressed. The plan is consistent with the town's adopted CAMA land use plan. The plan is consistent with the town's adopted Town of Duck 2027 vision. The plan is consistent with other applicable state and county rules as confirmed through correspondence with related agencies, including NCDEQ, CAMA, NCDOT, and the Dare County Department of Public Health. With regards to the setback issue, and Sandy, please step in at any time. My understanding and the way that it has historically been done is the setback is measured to the outer walls of the building, and that's what the 10.2 and the 10.3 are measured to. I understand that there are allowances for eaves. You mentioned, sir, that they were 12 inches. I'm not sure what they are. What I will say is that, this is a conceptual development plan intended to get an overall approval of this project. The building plans that you see before you, those are not the final building plans. They have to be finalized. They get reviewed again by town staff. They get reviewed again by the building inspector. And if there is a roof eave issue, I'm hoping that it would get resolved at that time. It was not the intent of this plan to show roof eaves that were not non-compliant. What the intent was to illustrate that the building walls and the setback to those building walls do meet the requested setback reduction, if that helps clarify your question. And I don't, Sandy, if I'm wrong in saying that the building setbacks are normally measured to the wall and then there's an exception to the eaves, I understand that.
Well, that would be correct. We have an exception that measures to the building and you can have up to a 12-inch eave into the setback.
Sure.
If you have greater than 12-inch eave, then we would be counting that additional space, that additional eave in as part of
Okay.
requiring to be in the setback.
Well, I'm sure that the client and the architect will have no issue with reducing the eaves or to meet the 12-inch provision of the ordinance. So,
Say that again, please.
yeah, I'm comfortable in saying that the owner and the architect are comfortable in reducing the building eaves to 12 inches to be compliant with the ordinance. The dimensions provided on this plan, again, were to the outside walls. They weren't intended to try to skirt around an eave exception or anything like that. Again, this is purely conceptual, the building plans. Thank you for your time.
Oh, we might have a question.
Well, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
No?
Mr. Klevitz, I just want to clarify, the way it seems to me in reading the plan, the boardwalk that is labeled elevated public boardwalk and has the decking hatch,
Yes,
that is the boardwalk and deck that is being proposed for certain as part of this project.
that is correct.
Okay, the language on the easements and extension areas you show say, by the town of Duck, but I did notice that the 8-foot easement on the north side of the property says, or alternate access way by the developer.
That is correct.
I assume that the developer might be open to installing that, but I'm guessing the road project would need to happen prior for any tie-in in that area. Is that correct?
Yes, the discussion between the applicant and town staff from the very beginning of this project, nearly 2 years ago, has always been around the premise that the town would extend the boardwalks to each end of what's being proposed here as including it in the overall Duck Boardwalk. The reason why we have noted, or by the developer, is so that if for some reason the town of Duck isn't able to extend the boardwalks, or do it in what may be considered an unreasonable time, then the owner can do it. But the owner doesn't want to do what the owner wants to do, which may not be what the town wants to do ultimately in their overall plan, because we don't know what that is.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments to the engineer? I have a couple, and it may well be that you want to answer them or someone else from the project.
Sure.
Or maybe I should ask first, are there other comments that the project team wants to make? Because some of these questions might go to others. So first, are there other comments that anyone from the project team wishes to make? Okay. On page 2 of your proposal, number 1, down near the bottom of the page, village commercial development option criteria. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Land use proposal is consistent with the town's adopted vision and comprehensive land use plan. There were significant comments at the previous meeting about safety. Could you address how the safety concerns here in the proposal are consistent with the town's adopted vision and comprehensive land use plan?
I will say that that the safety issues that I recall coming up last time were surrounded around the northern parking area and vehicles having to possibly back out onto Duck Road. And we have resolved that issue by providing a dedicated turnaround space.
How does the lack of a turning lane fit into your concept of a safe egress and ingress?
I'm not able to speak to that. That is an issue for traffic engineers, NCDOT, and maybe engineers already hired by the town of Duck to answer that question.
Then I would conclude you're not able to state with certainty that the safety concern is met or is met by the proposal then if you can't address it.
If you're able to present to me a specific statement in the land use plan that talks to safety and how we're not compliant, I'm happy to review that.
I will do that.
Okay.
Later in our discussion. Number 2, at the top of page 3, you state the development proposal is consistent with the desired scale, character, and function of Duck Village. Question, how many apartments are there above retail establishments in the Duck Village?
I don't know the number, but I do know that there are some.
Then I would gather you don't know how many are 2-bedroom apartments as opposed to 1-bedroom apartments.
Most of them are 2-bedroom apartments. We did this research following the last meeting, and I can provide that information. I don't have it readily available now, but we can certainly get that information.
I would like to see it.
And there are some 3 bedrooms.
Number 4, the requested modification is the least necessary to accommodate the proposed development and meet the intent of the village commercial development option. Would you not agree if you reduce the number of apartments that you would meet the intent of the village commercial development option? My comment relates to the least necessary.
I'm going to say that we are efficiently utilizing the site as a whole to meet the developer's needs and stay within the village commercial development option. I mean, we can extend the word leased to there's nothing on the property at all. So I don't know how to answer that other than saying that we're efficiently using the space to the maximum extent that we can.
Number 5, the requested modification will not negatively impact adjacent properties or the surrounding area. There have been numerous comments made at our prior meeting, at the town council meeting, and here tonight about the negative impact of properties in the surrounding area. Are you confident, are you certain that it will not negatively impact in the face of the comments that have been made tonight?
Yes.
Okay. The next comment, in support of the requested setback reduction, the following facts shall be considered. Sound front nature of the development is its key aspect, and is consistent with existing developments within the town, village, commercial boardwalk district. if it's a key aspect, why has not the developer proposed paying for extending the boardwalk?
Because it was discussed in the very beginning that that was going to be an agreement between the developer and the town.
But you're presenting it for the recommendation, the approval and recommendation of the planning board. So I'll ask the question again. If it's a key aspect of the proposal, why have you not committed to extending the boardwalk? Why is the developer not committed to
He
extending?
has committed to doing that. That's why the easements are being provided.
Building it or simply providing an easement?
Committed to making it happen through the provision of the easements that are being provided.
I
and
just
shown.
haven't seen it in their proposal. I think we're talking
easements are-
around each other now because I just haven't seen it in their proposal.
You haven't seen the easements on the plan?
No, your commitment to build the board, extend the boardwalk.
Okay.
They can commit to.
I don't think so. I would clarify that for the.
We'll discuss.
Okay.
Thank you. That gets at my questions
you.
to you. Again, I'll ask, are there any other comments from the proponents of the proposal? Please give your name and address.
Yes, sir. My name is Kraus Gray. I'm the attorney for the applicant. My office address is 3120 North Croatan Highway in Kill Little Hills. Couple of quick things. One, the gentleman pointed out, and I apologize, I'm blind. I can't read your name, sir. Yes, sir. Was kind enough to point out to us that the overhangs are too far. That was not intended. I've spoken with the architect. That's not an issue. We will meet the 10-foot requirement with no more than 12 inches of overhang into that. Secondly, as to the point that you were just raising, sir, the plan in front of you clearly shows that the developer is proposing to construct the boardwalk that is what I'll call to the west of the site. The boardwalk or the walkway that is to the north, next to the fence that's going to be adjoining the property owned by the Duck Ridge Shores Civic League, we don't know yet what the width of that's going to be. Conversations have occurred with the town. We've agreed that we will dedicate an easement. We're showing that there will be an easement there. But the exact location and the exact configuration has to be determined by the town, not by us. And yes, the town is the one who's going to be constructing that portion. As to the connection to the boardwalk that is in front of the Duck waterfront shops, it ends before our property line. We can't go to it. If and when there is some agreement that allows that boardwalk to extend, we're showing that we're willing to grant and will grant easements either along the edge of the right-of-way, the sound, or if it can't go that way, through other mechanisms to get to it. We've committed to that, to this town, and it's shown on this plan, sir. So those are commitments made as a part of this. And we have no problem if you put it in any approvals that it's subject to us agreeing in writing. The problem is I can't draft an easement, the language, until I know the width and other information about it. I will say as an ancillary, and has nothing to do with what's in front of you today, is that the town has submitted to us a proposed temporary easement so that the construction can occur on the road to raise it. And I had asked to get copies of the plat showing where that easement was. I received them a little while ago, and I prepared a revised draft of the proposed easement submitted to your legal counsel, and he is reviewing it. So my point simply being, we're willing to grant to this town and give this town what it needs for what you call the shoreline project, which in this case was raising the road. And we've shown on our plat that we're dedicating easements so the town can interconnect everything. Because we look at it from my client's perspective. He wants people to come there. He's got retail and he's got a restaurant. If people walk to it, that's a good thing for him. So granting these easements, and I'm not saying we're doing something altruistic, I'm saying as a real practical matter, we're doing it because it's good business. I just wanted to answer those two questions, sir.
Questions,
Yes, sir.
returning a couple. There was nothing should be construed in my question as to narrow my comments to easements. My question was, why does not the applicant commit to building the boardwalk?
As to the boardwalk that is to the west side we have committed. We're going to build that. As to the one to the north, I'm not going to ask my client to commit to something he doesn't know what it is.
To tie into the existing boardwalk?
It will tie into the easement right goes to the
Forget easement for a second. Are you committing to build to extend the boardwalk? That's my question.
No, sir.
Okay.
They're
And
not
it's-
committing.
May I
finish my answer, sir? We're not committing to build at this time a boardwalk from where ours will presently end to where the one presently ends that's in front of the Alice shop. Because A, that have us building on somebody else's property, and B, probably more importantly, we don't know what in fact, how that's going to be designed.
Okay.
It can go out into the sound, it can come straight across. Honestly, don't know how that's going to happen.
That's a fair response. In answering Tim's question about the easement and the setback requirements, what would you change in order to make that accommodation? The roof
to be honest-
pitch, the building setback,
Not changing the building setback. That changes the whole plan, sir. That would require a change in the roof overhang. And to be honest, I've got the architect over there, and he's the guy that can answer that question because this boy don't do pounding of nails.
Tim raised the question because contrary to your position in your proposal, you are requesting something that's not allowed in the setback, the setback ordinance. So if you're changing it, we're not looking at what that change will be.
If I might, Chairman Cofield, that is a pretty minor revision that could easily be, if agreed upon, revised prior to going to council. You're talking about a 2-foot overhang versus a 12-inch overhang. And again, that's something that's permissible in our ordinance. I think that the applicants would, as they've expressed, they would be able to make that revision without any hesitation. I feel like we're going to get hung up on this when it's really something that's a minor detail that was overlooked.
I disagree, but okay. I mean, we're looking at what's in front of us, and I'm not arguing that it can't be done, but that's not what's in front of us. Thank you, Mr. Kraus.
I understand your question,
Mr.
sir, and
Gray,
I can't answer it.
Okay.
That's what
That's fair.
architects are for.
That's fair.
And if you wish, I'll be happy to have him stand up here and respond to your question.
It's your proposal.
I understand that, sir.
Tim, would you like to have the architect answer your question?
No, I think I've heard from the civil engineer that if we approve this proposal, it will be with a modification here that the 2.8 foot overhang eave will be reduced to whatever math is, 1 foot or something of that nature.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that can be done in the proposal.
We have no problems, if I might state, we have no problems with a condition in any approval, should you approve this plan, that our overhang may not exceed what is contained within your ordinance, period, and we must present a plan so showing.
I think that's acceptable to me.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll now entertain comments from those with the comments of the presentation, the proposal from the proponents. We'll now hear comments from those who have issues with the proposal that's been presented tonight.
Before I start, could I ask if they can drop this down a little bit so you can actually see the boardwalk area that's been in discussion as well as the northern one? Yeah, the boardwalk that's being discussed is up in the northern part of the property, as well as its entrance right there. So we can just slide that. We just, yeah, perfect. That's great. Can I pass letters out? I mean, for me. Oh, no, that's fine. I think that's good. That's great. So, Bill Gray at 107 Speckled Trout. I'm speaking now not just as a homeowner, but as the president of the Duckridge Shores Civic League. And in front of you is a letter that has been put together by the Board of Directors and approved by the Homeowners Association, outlining all of the reasons why we would oppose this application before you tonight. We are very happy about the progress that we've seen from the original submission and the submission that's here tonight. We do want to stress that we would love to see a development, a mixed-use development on this property, but it needs to be a smart development as well as a safe development, and that's just what we're looking for here. The applicants put you in a very difficult situation tonight where they're asking you to approve a plan that the North Carolina Department of Transportation engineer, David Otts, has said that driveway entrance to the north does not meet the North Carolina regulations. It interferes with the functional area of an intersection. In addition, the town ordinance, section 156-112 states that no new driveway or on any development site shall be created that's less than 80 feet from a street intersection. That new driveway that's being proposed there is in violation of your own ordinance. It's within 80 feet of that intersection with Dune Road. So we would ask that you not approve this application and at least ask the applicant to remove that northern driveway. In addition, your zoning ordinance states no parking areas on commercial lots shall be, all parking areas on commercial lots shall be connected unless the town determines that topography of other natural features prevents it. In a visit to the site and looking at the site plan, you will see no natural features there that prevent the two parking lots being connected. Again, that's a violation of your ordinance. What is keeping the parking lots from being connected is the large drain fill and the drain fill reserve, which is in the middle, all which is being requested for the special use of the restaurant in this district. We're losing sight that tonight it's not just a setback that's a special use request, it's also the business, the restaurant, and the group development. All of that is what's leading to this unsafe situation we have up here at the north. Your ordinance also states that due to the limited amount of land available within the zoned areas of the town for major thoroughfare, rights-of-ways, et cetera. It is the intent of this chapter to keep driveways and streets, intersections along North Carolina Highway 12 to as minimal as possible. So the applicant is asking for 2 driveway entrances here. Your ordinance says minimize the number of driveways accessing Route 12, so you should require them to revisit the engineering here and only put in 1 driveway, and that would be the entrance to the south. Our last request would be what's been discussed here tonight, the turn lane from the south going to the north on Route 12. This will be the only development in this whole stretch of town that doesn't have a center lane, turn lane in front of it. And it's going to, without that, you're going to create traffic congestion as people coming to the north and to the left. We've heard, I think Sandy say that the town can't make them do that, but your ordinance states that in granting any special use permit, the town council may prescribe appropriate conditions and safeguard to the location, nature, and extent of the proposed use and its relation to the surrounding property for purposes of ensuring the conditions of the permit will be complied with and minimize any injurious effect of the proposed use on adjoining properties, the character of the neighborhood, or the health, safety, and welfare of the community. You can impose conditions upon this special use application. One of them should be that turn lane should be constructed as a condition of this application. Being in the development world, I cannot tell you the number of times when I've had an application before a county or city, and they've told me, put in right turn lanes, left turn lanes, stop lights, whatever it may be. You have the ability, based upon your own ordinance, and we would support that you would do that. The last item relates to the boardwalk to the north that's being shown here. I mentioned earlier tonight that there was a ramp showed on the NC Coast plan when they were looking for special use permit. That ramp was never built. Our concern is that boardwalk extension from what's being proposed to the west side will never be built. It's important that with the widening of the road and the sidewalks being constructed on the west side of Route 12, that pedestrians coming from the north can come and use that boardwalk to connect back to the back of these shops. Otherwise, those pedestrians will be walking through the parking lot, which is not a safe situation. I think we could agree with that. So we would be looking not only for the applicant to construct that boardwalk. You heard the lawyer for the applicant say that they really want it to be there because it's great for their business. Well, I don't think the town should be building a boardwalk for the benefit of the developer. I think that the developer itself should be building that boardwalk and connecting out to the sidewalk for their benefit, just as they had said. And lastly, there has been discussions with us and the applicant about providing some fencing and screening to keep people who are entering onto this property from trespassing into the Duck Ridge property, which we own immediately to the north. We would encourage you that you make that a condition of this approval as well, that it not just be shown on paper, that it's a condition that it must be built at the time the development is happening. And that's my comments tonight, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Any other comments?
Dick Alabach, our property's at 100 Dune Road. I'd like to second what Mr. Gray said about the buffer area between this property and our property. We've been there, as I told you, since 1988, and at one time, the use of the area immediately adjacent to Resort Realty was used for jet skis. Now, I don't know exactly what could be done in regards to that. I think that's a town situation, and you don't have any control over that. But that's a concern that I have as far as the use of this property is concerned. Once you allow him to have 2 retail places there, the town will allow what they allowed to have happen in there. We need to have a screen between those property proposal and our area, because I see people walking in that area now from my house. They can get into that area from the parking lot on the north part of the Resort Realty property. If something isn't done, once that property is developed and the town does their work on the shoreline project, people will know that that area is accessible. And I know the town is doing a good job as far as proposing what they're going to put in there as far as screening is concerned. But once people see that that property is there and has a kayak rack and is accessible from the road, they're going to go in there. I've seen them pull catamarans out of the sound just above there where the rock wall is and drag them up and put them on trailers. So I know that, in my opinion, there's going to be people who are going to try to access the sound from that area. So what we're doing is we're asking to have something put in there to discourage this from their property. I don't know whether you're going to have a problem as far as parking there is concerned. I know the town and the property owner can talk about this and put signs in there that if people park in there, they're not supposed to be there. As far as use of the facility is concerned, they can be towed. But in the meantime, you're going to have people who are going to find out about this, and I can see that they're going to come there and park in that parking lot and try to get onto our property to access the sound. So I would encourage you to have anything that's needed to be done on this project written into the project before you approve that particular project. That's the only way that I can see that we can be guaranteed that what's supposed to happen on here is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alabette. Any other comments?
Again, Dennis Wojcik, 103 Dune Road. I'd like to just, in one instance, clarify my recollection of my meeting with Ms. Cross and Mr. Gould in regard to when this project first came up. I saw an 8.5 by 11 plan and had concerns about it, and so I went to the town and they met with me and provided plenty of time to go through things, so I appreciate that. If I heard Ms. Cross tonight indicate that I did not have concern with the left turn lane in Duck Road extending to the north, my recollection of the meeting was I've looked at it, I looked at the plans that are put together for the town project along Duck Road, and it was my opinion that you could fit a left turn lane in to the south entrance, but I thought it was very problematic to be able to fit it into the north. So it wasn't that I didn't have concern, but my analysis of the plans led me to believe that you wouldn't be able to do it. But I did impress upon her that I thought it would be important to get it to the south driveway. And indeed, the other thing was I was there because you're creating a situation that you see throughout the town. Short parking lots, driveways, backups, and your ordinance says that these parking lots should be connected. I feel certain that the ordinance says that to provide circulation within the site so you don't have those backups. And so that really was a driving force for me to start looking at this project because I see it as problematic. I ride my bicycle through town many times a week, and there are many, many times that cars are stopped blocking the bike lane because they can't get in and they've got nowhere to go. I think the layout here is poorly done, and I think you should follow your ordinance that says these parking areas should be connected. And I agree with everything else that Mr. Gray said in regard to ordinance violations. I believe he very well put how this plan does not conform to your ordinance. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
Scott Dayton, 110 Dune Road. I also...
What was your last name again?
Dayton, D-A-Y-T-O-N.
Thank you.
I just wanted to get on the record to also support everything Mr. Gray said. I especially like the two words he described, safe and smart, or smart and safe. And having some of the questions and some of the comments made today makes me think that it all hasn't been totally thought through with those two words in mind. And that's why I would also respectfully request that you ask the applicant to go back and address these issues relative to safety that we've brought up tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? This is your last minute.
There's been talk tonight that David Otts at NCDOT indicated that the driveway is in the functional area. I know that's the case because he said he confirmed that to me in a telephone conversation I had with him. So I am the person that got that information, that he confirmed that northern driveway is in the functional area, and their policy states that you should do everything in the world to not have a driveway in the functional area. I questioned him as to why he gave a tentative approval, and his response was, well, a tentative approval does not mean much. We're going to do a more detailed review in the future. So I just wanted to get on the record that that information is coming from me through a telephone conversation I had with David Otts at NCDOT.
Thank you. Ms. Beard?
Hi, I want to circle back to the
Although I know your name because I wrote it down.
Okay, I'm
Would you
sorry.
give your name and address again?
Mary Ann Beard, 114 Dune Road. I want to circle back to the setback variance it's asked for. I had asked about this before in the town council meeting. Is that consistent with what was done with the other shops that are along the waterfront? Is this more of a setback than they have? And why was it asked for? Is it asked for because of parking? Is it asked for because of the septic field? Or why do they have to have this variance? I've been concerned, I mentioned it to the civil engineer before, asking him a question, if he was aware that with the last few hurricanes that we've had that have come up through the sound, that we've lost land on that sound area. You know, it's only been a couple years ago that we had a couple trees down there that are not there anymore, maybe some small bushes. They aren't there anymore. And it's because of the erosion that's happened during these hurricanes. So I'm concerned about the setback and why it's being asked for to be shortened, and say I'm concerned about that. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Beard. Any other comments, questions? Mr. Gray? If you would, and give your name and address again.
I'm just so used to the fact that I'm so loud that I don't normally need this. My name is Kraus Gray. I live at 102 Victoria Court, Point Harbor, North Carolina, and earlier I gave me my office address. Mr. Gray, who is not related to me, I don't believe, made several comments, but I want to sort of focus down on a couple of points. One, this is a redevelopment, and I understand that word is not defined in your ordinance. It's not. I look for it as well. So I just went to 4 different dictionaries. And the term redevelop means the action or process of developing something again or differently. The point being, if it's a redevelopment, then the standards of what we have to do are slightly different. Your staff has indicated to you that we have met all of those standards that are required. The gentleman pointed out, no, we didn't. And we have tried to address that with you in this hearing to let you know, hey, thanks for catching it, we'll fix it. As to the comment concerning putting the fence up, I don't have a problem, my client doesn't have a problem. We've said we'll do it. You want to make that a condition? We're going to do that. When they brought up they want some sort of protection from people coming across, we agreed that was a good thing, and we agreed that we would do it. Make it a condition of this particular proposal for any acceptance. The final point I want to cover, though, is the one that seems to be the one that we're sort of bouncing around with, which is the parking.
The what?
The parking, I apologize, sir. You have two existing curb cuts. They exist now. We're not changing that. We're changing the configuration of the parking spaces, but the curb cuts themselves are existing. If you go look at the existing site plan, you can see them on it. The Highway 12 is something that we don't have a control over. I heard Mr. Gray say, well, you can condition this upon us putting a red light up. Well, good luck at that, getting that through DOT. That's not going to help the circumstances here. My point simply being, and as your staff has already told you, we can't get DOT's approval until we get, assuming we're able to get, approval from this town. It's just chicken and egg. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. If DOT turns us down, then we got a different issue. We got to come back because the plan got turned down. But the plan in front of you is what we're requesting you, as amended for the setback overhang, we're requesting you to respectfully approve.
If you would, before you sit down, two issues you talked upon that I probably would not have mentioned it, but redevelopment. At the prior hearing, redevelopment project was mentioned numerous times, and this was called a redevelopment project. It is not a redevelopment project, as defined in the North Carolina statute and in DUC. So it is not a redevelopment project. Secondly, let me ask the question about the lack of a turning lane. If you drive in DUC almost any time during the day, there are trucks, delivery trucks, six-wheelers, 10-wheelers, 14-wheelers, 18-wheelers parked in the turning lane, making deliveries to businesses. Given the lack of a turning lane in front of the proposed development, where would the delivery trucks park? And do you not see that as a safety hazard if delivery trucks parked in the middle of the street where there's no turning lane?
The delivery trucks are going to have to come into the entranceways. I think somebody here wants to answer that.
Just give your name again for the record.
David Klebitz, 3831 Keepers Way. Sandy, do you by chance have the 2021 pedestrian safety study that VHB did for the town of DUC on hand? You don't have it?
I have it in my hands right now.
Okay, well.
Yeah, but you're talking about the one they just did last year?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually presented to council following it was a rapid comprehensive traffic study last August.
Well, there was a traffic study done, but there was also a pedestrian safety study done by the town engineer, VHB, or the town itself. It was a comprehensive study of the entire town. I'd like to point out in that study that there were two bullet points in the very general findings of that study. I do not have it here with me tonight. If Sandy, if you were able to get it, that would be great. But the two bullet points that stuck out to me when I found that was that they found that center turn lanes were problematic with pedestrian safety. They also specifically stated that pedestrian or center turn lanes, when vehicles are in the center turn lanes, they block pedestrians' view from when they're trying to go across the crosswalks that you have. There were only like 5 or 6 bullet points in this study that was done, and those were 2 of them that discussed how center turn lanes are problematic. I also want to mention there was discussion about how there's no other, how everywhere else in the town has center turn lanes. I'd like to reiterate a point that I made at the town council meeting, that there was a center turn lane that existed in front of, what's the restaurant at the very north end of Duck Village? Sunset Grill. There was a full center turn lane. That center turn lane was recently removed by providing islands in that center turn lane to stop having that center turn lane and to provide for pedestrian safety. So those are 3 points that I just want to bring up that are in studies that have been done by separate engineers hired by the town for the town, and also an existing situation where a center turn lane was intentionally removed in front of an existing development in the village to allow for better pedestrian safety.
That's somewhat of a misnomer, because at the Sunset Grill, they have 2 means of egress and ingress.
I understand.
And big trucks can pull in there all day long. As a practical matter, big trucks are parked in the turning lane throughout the Duck Village all the time. And that's because they cannot pull in the driving in the parking lots there in numerous cases. And so my question still remains, the big trucks are not going to be able to pull in, certainly without backing out, but not going to be able to pull in your parking lot. How are they going to make deliveries if they don't park in the turning lane?
I understand that question.
Okay.
Mr. Cofield, do you know if the instances you're talking about, if those businesses have compliant loading zones in their parking lots?
No idea. I'm just saying, as a practical matter.
Right, but I mean, there is a compliant loading zone on this proposal, so I'm just pointing that. I just wonder.
I'm just saying they can't pull in there, whether there's a loading zone or not. The 18-wheelers, 14-wheelers cannot pull in this parking lot and pull out without backing out.
Oh, yeah, potentially have to back out, sure. But they don't have to necessarily park in the center of the road.
Okay, well, thank
One
you.
other point that I just want to clarify, Mr. Wojcik stated that he had a conversation with David Otts regarding this project. I've also had 2 conversations with David Otts, once prior to the previous application, where he expressed that he had no concerns with the proposed driveway or what's being proposed here. He also expressed that because of the discussion that was going on, that he extended his conversation with the division traffic engineer above him to see if they had any problems, and I was told that there were no problems. This was prior to the previous application. After the denial of the previous application, and we resubmitted a driveway permit application again, I followed up with Mr. Otts and had another conversation with him where he indicated that they were not planning to change the decision that had already been described to us. So I don't know. I'm relying on what I'm being told. Mr. Wojcik is relying on what he's been told, but I want to just share with you what I've been told in the conversations that I've had and that are also in emails from David Otts to the town of Duck. I'm not aware of an email from the town, or from David Otts to the town of Duck describing the concern that Mr. Wojcik has stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, public comments? I see 2 people approaching.
I'm Rick Fagerston, 101 Dune Road in sunny Duck. And thank you, Kraus Gray, you gave me the opening I needed. When they approved these parking lots back in '86, there was a connector lane between the 2 parking lots. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron Forlano, 1221 Duck Road. I just want to make a comment and say that I'm in favor of this project, not as it stands, but right now, we're looking at, for the last year, a vacant building, a fallow property. Nothing's been done on that property. I have a lot of hope and faith in our staff, Joe Hurd, Sandy, and Donna. I have a tremendous amount of faith in this planning board. The planning boards that preceded this board have done a hell of a nice job with this town over the last 20 years. I've been here for 38 years. I've seen a lot of changes. But the changes that I've seen over the last 20 years since we became a town have been fantastic. I don't think anybody should complain about what we have. I've heard people refer to the traffic. With growth, there's traffic. There's nothing we can do about that. It's 90 days a year. I've lived on Duck Road for 38 years. Don't tell me about traffic. I know all about traffic. It's 90 days a year. And then after that, we have Duck Road is virtually empty. I would like you to see you guys, I know you're going to dot the i's, you're going to cross the t's. The staff is going to do the same thing. This, as it stands right now, these people have made valid concerns. All the concerns they've made are very valid, except for the traffic. It just needs to be tweaked. And I know this board, I have faith in this board that they could tweak it. You don't have to accept this. You could accept it with all kinds of conditions. You can have an appendix of 50 conditions. Accept it now, give them 50 conditions. Or say, you've heard the people speak, you've heard us speak, go back and they've made some fantastic changes. They've made great changes. They've cut the residential, they've cut the commercial. They've cut the parking. I think all it needs now is a little bit of tweaking. But we need to get rid of that eyesore that's up there now for the last year. It's going to do nothing but give us tax money in the form of sales tax. It's going to give us building permit money. It's going to be a benefit to the town. But it has to be done right, and I know you guys can make it right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Any other comments? Hearing none, we will close the comments and discuss the matter among ourselves, among the board. Who would like to start? Mark?
Mr. Chairman, I am relatively satisfied with the changes that they made. I think in listening to the public comments, I have, should we move for approval, added the condition that the proposed fence on the north property line be a condition of the approval. And if the applicant, I'm not sure if we can work with the applicant and the applicant's attorney, but I do think that the building of the walkway on their property to tie into the eventual raised road makes sense, having them build the portion that's on their property. As far as the off-property stuff, I feel like the easements are sufficient. So, and then, obviously, I don't have a problem with any of the staff proposed conditions, particularly number 8. I think that covers, to the extent that this board is able to cover, the safety issue of the north driveway. in the sense that it's DOT's call, and we are allowing them to make that call. I also think it's consistent with the land use plan.
I pretty much agree with what Mark has just said. My biggest concern has been after the modifications, has been the traffic. And I'm hearing here, even from the applicant's attorney, this chicken and the egg business about, getting approval of the project before you go to NCDOT. But what I'm hearing that if NCDOT can't or doesn't feel like this is a doable project, they're not going to approve it, and therefore can't get approval and start with the proposal here that the Promenade at Duck is providing. That's been my biggest concern. And maybe we can have some discussion on that. It's sort of like the town of Duck and NCDOT have got to reach agreement before this project could be approved finally. So if that's the case, I'm okay with where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello. From what I've heard, I agree with Ron out there. I agree with the people on this board. What I don't agree with is approving this. I think we've got too many things that are hanging. I think if we send this to council right now, there's going to be too many things for them to look at. And I kind of have a feeling they're not going to approve it. We have, I think the DOT system can be taken care of. I have no problems with that, but I know it's a problem, but I think that can be taken care of. What I don't like is the other stuff that's hanging. I don't like this business about the walkway, okay? I don't like the business about it because you're just building another walkway here, which has no ending and no beginning. You're going to pay for the whole thing? No. Therefore, I do not think that this is inconsistent with the land use plan. I think there's too much in the air for the council to consider right now. But I would like it to finish too. I like to see something there. My main concern is, I think it's not moving forward because it's just too much for this town to swallow right now. It's just too big for this town, period. I don't think I could support this.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I guess I want to, in my mind, I just want to remind everybody that this is a conceptual plan to move forward. It's not a final product, and the final product, before anything is done, has to be presented and approved. I think there are some conditions in here that have been laid out by the staff that have to be met for this to go forward. I like Mark's comments about the fence and the walkway being a contingency of this to the north side. I think that's probably a good safety feature. I know that at the Shops to the Boardwalk, when you start there, you have to walk through a parking lot to get, if you want to start the boardwalk around Blue Point and walk south. And I agree, that would be nice if there was I mean, you cut through Tommy's to get there. The 18-wheelers or the big trucks, as far as having deliveries there, Many of you probably familiar with Tommy's, and those trucks back in. So traffic gets held up for a while, they back in, and then they make the deliveries, and then they pull out. And with a turnaround area, or what you want to call it, there's a vacant area that they can back in. So that does not bother me at all. It's an inconvenience. Building in the town of Duck is tight. Parking is an issue and will continue to be an issue. And it's not so much about the traffic of Duck and the businesses in Duck, but there's a lot of development that's taking place up north in the Corolla area. And as long as that takes place, these cars have to come through Duck, and there's no reason why Duck should not grow because Corolla is growing and you've got traffic that you have to deal with. It's something that we're going to have to live with and just get used to. So from that perspective, I think the project would be a benefit to the town of Duck. There are a couple of things, like we said, in the conditions that they have to be met. The overhang, I guess, needs to be that doesn't bother me, but I think that needs to be straightened out. But with that, I'm in favor of moving forward with this.
I'll offer a few comments. In addition to the comments I've made and questions to the proponents, I have some real concerns with the fact that, in my view, clearly the proposed development does not meet the land use plan on the record for Duck. And I'll go through, because I've listed many of them, and I'll go through them to point out the issues that I have. On page 28 of the land use plan, we discuss land use compatibility. And it states, ensure that development and use of resources and preservation of land balance protection of natural resources and fragile areas with economic development and avoids risk to public health, safety, and welfare. And I think this project simply does not do that. I think this project, in the various aspects that we have discussed, puts at risk public safety. I think Duck Road is a real problem for the project as it exists now. What is not there is the solution. Whether that's a North Carolina Department of Transportation problem, or a Duck problem, or a combination of Duck and the North Carolina Department of Transportation, it is a problem in my view. And because of that, I don't think it can meet the land use compatibility provision of the land use plan. Secondly, page 29 of the land use plan, infrastructure carrying capacity. Ensure that public infrastructure systems are sized, located, and managed so that the quality and productivity of areas of environmental concern and other fragile areas are protected or restored. The plan shall include policies that establish service criteria and ensure improvements minimize the impact to other fragile areas. And I think this plan does not do that. I think it increases the impacts, as we have talked about. It certainly does not minimize it. One of the things that I mentioned at the previous hearing of this proposal, given the issues of traffic and safety, which residents of Duck have spoken to on numerous occasions, is that we want, in the best light, an acceptable light, see development proposals that begin to ameliorate the problems and certainly not expand upon the problems. I think this proposal, this development proposal, expands upon the problems that we all recognize exist in Duck today. Traffic we've talked about, safety is an issue. So I think it does not meet the land use plan in that regard. Page 35 of the land use plan. Page 35, 4.2. Ensure that development of land minimizes negative direct and secondary environmental impacts and avoids risk to public health, safety, and welfare, and is consistent with the carrying capacity of the land. Clearly, in my view, it does not do that. It increases the risk to public health, safety, and welfare, and is not consistent with the carrying capacity of the land. Page 37. On page 37, it speaks to supporting legislation that provides local government with tools to protect and enhance the scale and character of development in Duck. It specifically says, support legislation providing local governments with tools to protect and enhance the scale and character of development in Duck. I don't know how this could speak to the issue in a more straightforward manner, because I think this development proposal is not of the scale that protects development in Duck. Page 40, the land use plan. 8.2, ensure a safe, efficient automobile transportation system with NC-12 remaining a two-lane facility with turn lanes as needed. We've talked about NC-12, we've talked about the lack of a turning lane, and I think we all agree it's needed. So I think the proposed development is not consistent with the land use plan. Page 41. Implement best practices in public safety, beach safety, and risk management. I think this proposal will not lead to the implementation of the best practices for public safety. Page 79 of the land use plan. Transportation systems. This is an interpretation of the maps that are provided, but again, transportation in Duck is congested due to through traffic on NC-12. Congestion is heaviest during the tourist season. This proposed development will only increase the traffic congestion. Why? Because of the lack of a turning lane, the egress and ingress issues. I think it does not meet this provision of the land use plan and is not consistent with the ideals and objectives of the land use plan. Page 93 of the land use plan. Speaks to traffic congestion again and balancing the needs. Needs. The developer has talked about the improvements and how this project will connect to the other commercial development along the boardwalk area in Duck. And I think they have spoken well to that need. But balancing the needs means you consider other things too. The nearest homeowner association has spoken loudly against it. Residents in the area have spoken loudly against it. We have heard the comments of individuals talking about the problems that would result from the proposed development that's been presented. So I think that this proposed development has not spoken to or balanced the needs that are in front of them. And some revised project could very well do that. I don't think this project does that. I don't think it balances the needs of Duck. One of the land use plan speaks to threats. Threats for the town of Duck as identified in the land use plan. Number 3 on the list is traffic congestion. Threats are issues that may need to be addressed in order to ensure the continuing success of the town. The most pressing threats are related to environmental hazards such as rising sea level, damaging storms, erosion, flooding, especially in the town's vulnerable commercial district. Congestion was also identified as a major threat. I think the proposed development increases the threat of traffic congestion. It does not help to ameliorate the threat of traffic congestion. Again, it gets back to the concept in planning. You look at what's in front of you now, and you look at long term. And there should be an attempt to balance the needs. Balance the needs, balance the objectives, and I don't think that has been done in this proposal. And again, on page 107 of the land use plan, what are the top challenges for Duck? The residents say it's traffic congestion. If we don't begin to address in our planning in Duck the traffic congestion in Duck, we complicate its future, we don't help its future. So in addition to the various comments and the questions I've asked during the hearing, I want it to be very specific as to where and how I think it does not address the needs and the issues that are clearly defined in the land use plan for Duck. I think this project is inconsistent with the land use plan for Duck. Any other comments or questions? discussion among us board members? This is, at this point, I'd just rather.
Mr. Cofield, Mr. Chairman, I would just make, I agree that traffic is a serious issue for the town. And I agree that we don't want to create traffic policy and traffic decisions that exacerbate that. But I also don't think that we can hold each applicant for a new project that is extremely consistent, if not almost like just an extension of the waterfront shops to the south. We can't hold each applicant for a new project responsible for solving the town's ongoing traffic problems. And I think that to say that it's inconsistent with the land use plan because it would make traffic worse, we need some sort of data or decision by either a recommendation, I guess, from VHB or from DOT that there's an issue. And I think that we're dealing with that by conditioning that we require their approval. So of the concerns that you raised, that was one that stuck out to me. And then the other, I would say, is for each inconsistency with the land use plan that you pointed out in your view, I do feel like the analysis by the applicant and the analysis by staff definitely create a logical leg to stand on in favor of the project too. So, you know, that's why I just reiterate that I do feel like it's consistent with the land use plan.
Any further comments?
I'd like to go back and just reiterate, I mean, what I said earlier is I don't think, that there is a traffic problem in Duck. I don't think Duck creates that traffic problem. I don't think if you extend 3 lanes all the way out to the Village Bar and Grill that traffic problem is going to be satisfied. We're going to have it as long as Corolla keeps developing and we can't add roads. I think NCDOT has said through their various studies that there's not a thing that we can do about the problem with the traffic in Duck. So from that regard, I just go back to that. I think that what the applicant has put together is an enhancement to the town of Duck rather than a deterrent.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm sort of reiterating what Randy said. I feel like this is a,
Tim, could you speak just a little bit louder or more directly into the mic, please?
I feel like this is a good proposal and the applicant has made the changes that we requested or mentioned after their first proposal. And I feel like that everything we've said and most of what James said about the land use is all related to traffic, but I don't feel like we can penalize this applicant because of our existing traffic problem in Duck and exacerbated by the 58,000 tourists that are up north of the restaurant Sunset Grill. There was some study said 58,000 people are from that point north. And I feel like the applicant is willing to work with us, and I think the town of Duck is going to do the very best they can with DOT to try to solve this issue of the left turn lane. And as I said, I think that the applicant has complied with everything we've asked for. And I'm not happy with the traffic, but I think that the applicant's proposal is sound and it will contribute to life in Duck, contribute positively.
Hearing the discussion, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
My understanding now is that you're going to take a formal vote on this, am I correct?
That's correct.
Could I ask Mr. Murray and Mr. McAlpin, is it?
McKeithen.
To explain what you have no motion before you to vote on. One of the things that Mr. Murray said was he had objections to certain parts of this. And I know when you take the vote, it's going to be a yes or no, if I'm correct. And I'm not sure exactly what Mr. Murray is telling me when he talks about this. My understanding of what he's saying is that he has objections to part of this, yet he's in favor of the project itself. So that when you ask for a vote on this, what the motion would be carried, if it was carried, is it a yes or no motion for the project as it is now with the things that you talked about to be included in it? Because if you vote on it now, yes or no, then you're not including the projects that you're talking about. The boardwalk and the wall and things like that, unless you specify that in the motion.
I'll let you answer a question, but I'm not going to open it back up for public discussion. I think if Mark has I think Mark will make the motion that Mark wants to make.
Yeah, your question will be answered when you hear me make the motion. Okay.
May I say something before you make the motion? I agree with Mr. Chairman, but he did not only talk about traffic. I don't know why you guys think he only talked about traffic. There's a lot of other things in the Land Use Committee that he went over. So, I mean, try to remember them. And I still think that we have a lot hanging, that's all. There's a lot that should not be sent up to council before it's actually taken care of. That's a mistake. So I could not support this. That's all I want to say.
I do have a motion, but Tim is writing down something for me. On the north. They can't build that. I don't think we can, I can't add that one to it. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the special use permit as proposed with the following conditions. Conditions 1 through 13 as listed by staff. And then the following additional conditions. The condition that a fence be constructed as proposed on the site plan on the north border of the property adjacent to the Duck Ridge Village Shores Civic League property. That the applicant agree to fund and build the proposed walkway on the north and west portion of the property currently labeled proposed 8-foot wide access easement for public boardwalk extension by Town of Duck or alternate access way by developer. And I propose the additional condition that the roof overhangs be limited per the Town of Duck's ordinance, section 156.051. I'd also like to add the condition that the 2 easements noted for the possible future public extension to connect to the boardwalk at the waterfront shops labeled in the wetland area and labeled at the southwest corner of the property be conditions of the approval, that those be included.
Mark, could you clarify the bit about the what you just were talking about? Are you saying that you want the applicant to build the boardwalk all the way out to where he doesn't want to build it? What are you saying?
I would think the conditions were very clear. The portion that is on their property, they will fund.
Yeah, I
The
understand
easements
that.
that they have proposed,
I understand.
those will be conditioned.
Okay, but not connect the boardwalk to the Blue Point.
No,
Okay.
not at this time.
That's all.
That's not part of this proposal.
And I second Mark's motion.
It's been moved and properly seconded that the application be approved with the conditions that were noted by Mark Murray. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
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 All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. It's done. We will now move to new business, item B.
On B.
Chairman Cofield, if you can just give me 1 second. So at the last council meeting, they took into consideration your planning board transmittal letter regarding the dune walkover standards, and they did send that back to us. At our last planning board meeting, we did discuss the need to potentially look at ways. And with that in mind, and in order to get some gauge from the planning board members as to what they're thinking in terms of the regulatory standards related to dune walkovers, I would like to schedule a special meeting so that I can have you taken out on the beach in a Suburban in comfort, so that we can look at some different actually discuss what's there and what the desire might be in terms of revisiting that ordinance language. So I'd like to be able to bring this back to you at a September 14th meeting. And our travel services are going to start losing folks very quickly. So I was advertise this as the public. I keep going in and out early in the morning before the beachgoers get thick and tents are all over the place. So I have a couple days in mind, and I would like to run them by you and see if for your schedule.
What days?
Well, the earliest we could do would be Tuesday, and we could do something around 7:30 potentially, or we can do Wednesday around 7:30. I know this is terrible, Randy. I might be able to do 8, but the later we get, the more difficult it is to travel the beach and actually not deal with conflict with pedestrians and beachgoers.
I thought you were going to say 6. I was ready.
So these are the days, basically. I have Tuesday the 16th, Wednesday the 17th, or Friday the 19th, and I would propose a 7:30 meeting time and plan on meeting at the Public Safety Building.
I can do Wednesday for sure. I can't do Tuesday. I think I can do Friday. That's me.
Friday's the 19th? I can do Friday. I can't do Wednesday.
Okay?
I can do Friday.
19th.
7:30.
I can do Friday.
And what's Friday's day again?
Friday is the 19th.
19th.
I hope I'm right.
Yeah.
So, looks like, can everybody do Friday? And it looks like Tuesday is another good day?
Tuesday,
Not you
Joe
about-
can't do Tuesday.
Oh, no, he said Wednesday.
I can do Wednesday. I can't do Tuesday, and I can't do Thursday.
I can't do Tuesday.
Okay,
I can do any other day.
okay.
Friday seems to be,
Randy, can you do Wednesday and Friday?
I am working the magic show at 9 o'clock.
Friday seems to work for Tim.
Yeah, I
Mark.
can't do Wednesday.
Right, Friday so far, I've got Friday for Mark, Tim, Joe, and Randy.
Or
The
how long
question is whether
do you anticipate it taking? I
not
just haven't.
more, not, I would Well, normally I can drive the entire beach in an hour.
Yeah, no, I can't do it Wednesday. It's Fridays. Friday or Tuesday, I could do it. Those are but
And Joe can't do
do it
Tuesday.
on Tuesday.
Can you do Friday, James?
I can do Friday.
Well, then let's do Friday.
I'm also super familiar with beach accesses,
I know.
though, so like, if you guys need to do it on Tuesday when I can't do it,
Well,
I mean,
I would
Wednesday, that's
like to
fine.
have the full board and feedback from each member.
Okay,
I can't change what I have going on the Tuesday, or
All right.
I would do it.
well, then
Both of
Friday's
them are
good.
documented.
Friday works. That gives me plenty of time to make sure it's advertised properly.
Do we need 2 days or 1 day?
Just one day.
Okay, let's go with Friday.
Friday.
Friday, 7:30.
If we get a large public response, can we use the big army truck?
No.
Just put us in the
This is,
back.
the plan is, I've got 7 seats in the Suburban. That will be you 5 and myself. And we will have another pickup truck available for public if they choose to show up. There would only be room for 1 more in the Suburban. But I need to get feedback from you in order to just try and develop
Yeah.
a revision to the ordinance.
Friday at 7:30, and we'll advertise, and there might very well be members of the public there.
Friday's what date again? It gets
Friday's the 19th.
19th?
And right now, it's supposed to be beautiful.
You said firehouse, right?
Meet at the public
7:30?
safety, yes.
Yes.
Good God, I'm
Meet at
just
the Public
rolling
Safety
over.
Building.
Yes, sir.
And the weather's supposed to be great.
Mr. Chair? Of course. I'm sorry, just a point of order, if I may point out, and I believe Ms. Cross made this clear, that this would need to be conducted as a special meeting of the board.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that that's because you would have a quorum physically present altogether
Yes.
while you're conducting business, and that means that you could not take any actions
Yes.
without the public having an opportunity to observe and hear the actions actually taken. And I think this is just informational gathering, so that's probably not a risk.
That's
but I
the
just
goal,
wanted
is
to-
an information gathering so that we can then bring a staff report back to them at the September planning board meeting.
Right.
Are you sure the public doesn't have to hear us? Because if they had to hear us, we could be in the back of the big army truck. Just saying.
I mean, I can put you in the back of a pickup truck.
That would work, too. I mean, if they want to, do they have to hear our deliberation? Could they be in 2 separate vehicles?
You're deliberating on
Mark,
town
we're-
business, it could be broadcast.
We're not deliberating.
Oh, okay.
Mark, this
Live?
is simply a fact-finding.
Yeah, this is, I mean, the degree
just
we're
trying to
going to
get
have
the big truck.
discussion is going to be when we stop and look at the.
Okay.
Okay, moving us right along, not prolonging this little discussion. The next item on the agenda, staff comments.
Staff comments? But don't we have minutes first?
We have minutes, too.
Okay.
No, we didn't do the minutes yet.
So real quick, I'm just going to tell you what happened at the
I'm
council.
sorry, minutes.
Okay. Oh, we had minutes first.
The minutes were included in our package. Can I have a motion with respect to the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and properly second that the minutes be approved as presented. All in, question on the motion?
Aye.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Thank you. Staff report.
Staff comments. So council meeting last week, we took the zoning text amendment for duplexes to be added back into the C1 district to council for public hearing. They did approve that. I would anticipate that at the September meeting, we will have a conditional use permit application amendment, actually special use permit amendment that will be presented to you regarding the North Duck Water Sports Project and their request to modify their commercial space to residential space, as was described in the zoning text amendment request. We also took the stormwater revision zoning text amendment and the dune walkover, or the exceptions to walkways, dune walkway elevations due to exceptions in, Jesus, sorry, I'm losing it here. A text amendment regarding setback exemptions and elevation of dune walkway structures over surrounding grade. We took both of those to council for approval for public hearing, so they will go to them at the September meeting. During that discussion, we did bring up the regulatory requirements for 18 inches and no more than 30 inches for dune walkovers. That's why we're going to be going out next Friday, so we can get some We also presented an update to our hazard mitigation action plan, which is an annual item. Happened last year because it was still on the heels of our CRS, NFIP, community assistance visit. So we're now back on track to update that annually, typically at our August meeting, and that will carry us each year through 2025 when we actually update our hazard mitigation plan. We also approved a contract with Emerald Forest to continue as our contractor for beach planting. They have been with us since about 2013, and they do a great job.
Thank you, Sandy, for your report.
That's it.
Any board comments?
Just one question again.
Want to hear about project updates?
Where are we meeting for this?
Public safety bill.
Public safety.
We are? Oh, okay. I didn't get that. I was talking to somebody else. Public safety. All right.
Fire department.
Right.
Cool.
Any board comments? Hearing none,
Started fire.
I declare the meeting adjourned.
Okay, you can recycle my Tyvek envelope. I know.
Where are you going, Tim?